and fog, freezing fog across some parts of the south, and do watch out for some icy stretches as well. With these showers coming in, falling on frozen surfaces, well, it is going to lead to some pretty slippery surfaces. As we go through tomorrow morning then, a bright start to the day for many, just the cloudy, showery picture across western Scotland and a bit of cloud building across western Northern Ireland. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine. Just worth noting, any fog or freezing fog that does develop across those southern areas could take a little while to clear. Then, as we go through the day, the sunshine is going to get a bit weaker. The clouds going to build for many places, particularly across the far south, where we'll have cloud thickening and some outbreaks of rain pushing in, but also across western parts of Scotland and also Northern Ireland as a band pushes in as well. Temperatures will be markedly lower than today, most places only getting maxima in the mid-single figures Celsius. Then, as we go into Thursday, potential for some very wet and windy weather to sweep up from the south, particularly affecting England, but perhaps Wales as well. Some uncertainty about the position and intensity of this. Further north, staying with a mixture of bright sunny spells, but also some wintry showers. A mixed picture then as we go through the end of the week and into the weekend, staying a bit colder towards the north. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M8 westbound, lanes are restricted between Junction 2 and Junction 3 after a collision. In Wales, the A55 is closed both ways between Junction 35A and Junction 36A at Broughton after a vehicle fire. In Northamptonshire, the M1 southbound has one lane closed between Junction 16 and Junction 15A after a crash. In Dorset, the A35 westbound is closed between the A37 and the A3066 due to a broken-down vehicle. And on the trains, Great Western Railway has no services between Par and Newquay. And London Overground has disruption via West Croydon, Crystal Palace, Sydenham and the Mildmay line. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
There's just 3 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to make 2026 the year of yes. That's yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to making all of those dreams come true this year. Just make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. The government's going to war with Elon Musk's X. Funny thing is, all the other social media platforms have horrible images too. Why the fight with X, and what could it mean for our diplomatic relations with the United States. Some big news out in the last hour or so. The Times are reporting the government is going to drop its plans for digital ID. I've nearly opened the champagne. And Donald Trump is telling the protesters in Tehran and across the rest of the country, keep going, guys. I'm about to give you some big help. What could that mean? All of that and much more after the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Nigel. Good evening to you. 7 o'clock here in the GB newsroom. Our headlines. Donald Trump has told Iranian anti-government protesters help is on the way and to continue demonstrations despite a deadly crackdown. The US president urged protesters to take over their institutions and save the names of killers and abusers, promising those people will pay a big price. Mr. Trump, who's considering military intervention in the country, has also cancelled meetings with Iranian officials until the killing stops. Around 2,000 demonstrators are feared dead as a result of the crackdown. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has summoned the Iranian ambassador to the UK and has announced fresh sanctions against the regime. The Home Office says an increase in immigration enforcement raids will act as a deterrent to migrants from working illegally in the UK. The government says the raids are now at the highest ever level, with more than 17,000 carried out against what it describes as dodgy businesses like car wash, nail bars and takeaways. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says there's no place for illegal working and that migrants in the black economy now have no place to hide. Sir Keir Starmer's considering joining President Trump's Board of Peace that will temporarily run Gaza. A panel of world leaders, to be chaired by Mr. Trump, will discuss Hamas disarmament and will work on Gaza's reconstruction and future governance as part of the US-led 20-point peace plan to end the war. However, Number 10 has told GB News to treat the reports with caution, adding no formal invitation to join the board has been received and a decision has not yet been made. The BBC is moving to have Donald Trump's $5 billion defamation lawsuit thrown out before it reaches trial. Court filings show the broadcaster will argue the Florida court has no jurisdiction and that the Panorama programme didn't defame the president or indeed cause him any harm. The BBC admits the edit was misleading but says Mr. Trump was re-elected after it aired, undercutting any claim of damage. Lord Peter Mandelson has issued a personal apology to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for continuing a friendship with him after his conviction. The Labour peer says he was unaware of the late sex offender's crimes, but was wrong to believe him following the conviction in 2008 and wrong to continue associating with Epstein afterwards. On Sunday, Mr. Mandelson refused to apologise to Epstein victims in his first interview since being sacked as UK ambassador to Washington. And ministers are set to revive the cancelled Birmingham to Manchester leg of HS2 as part of a major new rail plan for the north. Labour will announce a reboot of Northern Powerhouse Rail with a new high-speed link promised once east-west lines are delivered. The move comes after Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak scrapped the original route, leaving the West Coast main line under severe pressure. Those are your headlines. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Well, never forget that it's Elon Musk that owns X. Now, the row, of course, is about the function Grok, which allows people, if they go into the platform and use Grok, to basically put up images of people undressed. This was what Liz Kendall, the technology minister, had to say about it in the House of Commons yesterday.
Sharing intimate images without someone's consent or threatening to share them, including images of people in their underwear, is a criminal offence. For individuals and for platforms. The Data Act, passed last year, made it a criminal offence to create or request the creation of non-consensual intimate images. And today, I can announce to the House that this offence will be brought into force this week.
So ultimately, as a result of the Online Safety Act, the government and the regulators do actually have the ability to ban X operating in the United Kingdom. And that threatens something of a diplomatic row with the Americans, who are very strong believers in free speech. Now, you might say, have they got the limits right? But they are strong believers in free speech. This was Sarah Rogers, and she's an official with the State Department, talking to Bev Turner last night.
If Ofcom do decide that X should be banned in the UK, what will President Trump say or do about that?
America, Bev, has a full range of tools that we can use to facilitate uncensored internet access in authoritarian, closed societies where the government bans it. We are facilitating uncensored internet in Iran right now. We've done that in the past elsewhere. And with respect to a potential ban of X, Keir Starmer has said that nothing is off the table. And I would say, from America's perspective, that likewise, nothing is off the table when it comes to free speech. So let's wait and see what Ofcom does, and we'll see what America does in response.
That's code for UK officials or even politicians could be banned from entering America. So we are at quite a pass with all of this. Now, just bear this in mind. It isn't just on X and through its function Grok that you can undress people and see sexualised images of children. In fact, Snapchat is a far worse offender than X, closely followed by WhatsApp and other platforms too. So it does feel, and yes, of course, none of us want this to happen. And it's always the fault of the person inputting to try and create these images. That's also true. But it does feel to me that this row is because it's Elon Musk's X. So you tell me at home, should X be banned? Let me know. Farage at GBNews.com. I'd love to know what you think. Now, I'm joined in the studio by Lorcan Price, legal counsel for the Alliance for Defending Freedom International, and they're based here in the UK, but with an American parent company. Also got my regular panel, Sir Reynold Jaya-Wardner and Joe Phillips, who we're here every Tuesday, aren't we?
Always. Wouldn't miss it.
We're here every Tuesday. Let's start with Lorcan. Lorcan, as I say, none of us want this stuff. None of us want the darker side of the web or the platforms. But just my feeling is it's all because it's Elon Musk.
Yes, you're correct, to put it succinctly. We have seen, I think it's fair to say, a complete change in the political discourse after Musk bought X and made it as free speech as he could. He tried to make a maximalised free speech platform. And it's no surprise that regulators have targeted X since that happened. Even before the online or the Digital Services Act, the EU's version of the Online Safety Act got going, they were criticising and they were saying they were going to use the legal powers against Elon Musk. That's Thierry Breton, the former commissioner. He's since been banned from the United States. We know now from leaked documents from groups such as Hope Not Hate and the Centre for Countering Digital Hate and others, that they had targeted X. And there's indeed a very senior official in Downing Street who used to work for the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, Morgan McSweeney. We also know that there is a coordinated effort among governments to target X. And we've seen leaked messages from members of the Labour Party saying that the government should cease doing business with X and posting on X platform. So you have to ask yourself the question, why this consensus against X? And it's not just in this country, as I say, and not just in the European Union, but in Australia as well. The e-safety commissioner in Australia, the first company that she targeted with her powers under their legislation, equivalent of the Online Safety Act, was X. Because X has decided to liberate speech to this degree, it is a threat to established political elites.
I mean, Elon said when he bought it, he was a free speech absolutist.
Yes.
So I suppose one of the arguments on the other side, Lorcan, is that the levels of abuse and free speech on X are simply going too far.
Well, the sexualized images of individuals are illegal and have been in this country for a very long time, and sharing them is illegal. The reason, and I think you've alluded to this already, the reason that this has become such a political issue is that with generative AI, you can create these images. That can be ChatGPT, it can be Gemini, and of course Grok. That's inherent in the technology. And really, it kind of, for the reasons we've already been discussing, Grok is one aspect of XAI's business, but I suspect the real target here is the platform X itself because of the reasons that we've discussed.
That's my feeling. And the potential here, when I remember, I was in America, of course, and you were there, and I testified before the House Judiciary Committee literally the day after Graham Lynham had been detained.
That's correct.
An Irish passport holder detained by 5 armed guards at Heathrow Airport for comments he'd made in Arizona. Sarah Rogers there was basically saying, look, you know what, you want to fight over this, we're going to give you one.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. And I just wonder how far the government will push it. You were completely correct when you told Congress that there is a free speech crisis in this country.
Yeah, I believe
and we have seen it again and again. We now have more arrests than Russia when it comes to online speech. So the question that the government has to ask itself is, how far are they going to clamp down on X when the United States has made it clear, both the Vice President and various officials, that freedom of expression is a key foreign policy aspect of their approach to Europe generally and this country in particular?
Joe, there are all sorts of excesses on the internet and with these platforms.
You know what I think about Elon Musk and X. I think it's a cesspit.
Yeah.
And it's unregulated, it's uncontrolled, and I think there's a bigger issue here. First of all, as far as Grok goes, you know, we have spent hours in this studio talking about the appalling failure of the authorities to deal with the grooming gangs.
Yep.
We have talked about the perceived threat to women and girls walking the streets of this country.
Yep.
This sort of machinery is disgusting, immoral and vile. And putting it behind a paywall does nothing except it allows you to identify the people who are using it, which makes it easy.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with what you've just said at all, but this is not confined to X.
No,
and the government are just going after X, is my point.
Well, I think there is a bigger question, and maybe Law can shed some light on this. At what point do you become a publisher rather than just a platform where anybody can say exactly what they like? And the thing is that we don't know, and nor does Elon Musk, however clever he might pretend to be, whether the people who are posting on X are real or whether they are algorithms or bots being used by bad actors.
Well, the distinction between publisher and platform really has been collapsed by the Online Safety Act. So you're prohibited from, as a platform, from hosting this kind of material under the Online Safety Act. And as the Minister was outlining today, there are powers up to including Section 146, which allows the complete banning of the platform in this country. And I think really that would be the nuclear option when it came to this. The point is this.
But why? Why is it the nuclear option to ban something that is illegal in this country?
Well, no, it's not illegal. The people that use it do things that are illegal, but just as they do on Snapchat and elsewhere. That is my point, Joe.
And if you can think of another example, I think if people may use the telephone system to conspire to commit crimes. It doesn't mean we go after the telephone operator or we say to EE or O2 or whatever the company is, you're criminally liable for the conspiracy that's been conducted over your system. So the same with X. I mean, the reason X is the standout target here is what we've already discussed, essentially, because it is absolutist or maximalist when it comes to free expression. But the problem is, if you allow children generally access to the internet, whether they're using just simply a search engine like Google Images, or even generative AI like Gemini or Grok or ChatGPT, they can find fairly quickly appalling images.
Yes, but
so there's a question about whether or not they should be allowed access entirely.
It's not just about children.
When it comes to adults, as I say, it is a crime to share sexualized images of people, and I think prosecuting people who do that is something that's already contemplated by the law.
Very, very heated. I mean, Ronald, you've got deep concerns about the impact the internet can have on young people, and we've talked about that before. But isn't this just the government going after Musk? Isn't that what we're seeing here?
Well, yes, so let's separate two things. First, we should absolutely protect children, and I've long been an advocate for banning children from smartphones, social media, and I'm pleased Kemi's announced this is now official considered policy. I hope there'll be cross-party agreement on this.
Which means it won't happen, but anyway.
Well, you know, let's hope there's cross-party agreement on this in time, because I think the evidence is there that social media and smartphones generally are bad for children. But you're right, there's a second point here, which is how do we then do it to protect them whilst that is not the case? Whilst there is no ban, how can we protect children? And the logical extension of the government's position is not only to ban Grok, XAI, but to ban ChatGPT, to ban Gemini and so on, as Lorcan says, because all of these tools can do exactly the same thing.
But they're not going to do that, are they?
And so that's what makes it fishy from a political perspective, but it's also wrong-headed because it's not actually going to fix the problem that they're seeking to fix. So, either do nothing because you can't, because you need to have these technologies, or the real nuclear option is to block all generative AI in this country, because that's the only way to stop these images.
And that we can't do because we're in the 21st century and we're going forward despite all the
and
wars.
that's part of the problem. I mean, it took 9 years, I think, to get to the Online Safety Act.
Earlier. Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. No legislation in any country can keep up with the internet and technology.
And the pace and speed.
And the answer is, quite simply, Sport England have this evening said they're not going to use X anymore. Well, that's fine.
Well, that's fine. That's their free choice.
Yeah,
it's a free market. X is a private company.
Yeah.
And we can choose not to use it, as we can choose not to use other platforms. Final thought, Lorcan, from you. Are we really heading towards a big diplomatic row between the two countries?
I think it's already started, Nigel. I think there is widespread, and you saw this in Congress yourself, disgust at the crackdown on free speech in this country, between people praying silently, between people posting things online, criticising government. And we're drifting into a situation where we're like our European neighbours, where people are being arrested for criticising politicians, for criticising the government. And that's my real concern about when we go this way. And I think J.D. Vance, when he spoke in February at the Munich Security Conference last year, was very clear that there was a civilizational divide opening up between Europe and the United States on freedom of expression. Free speech is the absolute cornerstone of democracy. If we don't have free speech, we cannot have a free exchange of ideas.
As you say, it started already.
It has.
And I can feel it. Look, and thank you very much indeed for coming in. In a moment, well, what I think is a very, very good news story. The Times reporting now with confidence that the government's plan for compulsory digital ID is going to be dropped. I love this government's U-turns.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I asked you at home, should X be banned? Mark said, there will be uproar in the UK if Starmer bans X. According to Ofcom, X has 22 million active users in the UK. Starmer would have to ban VPNs as well. This is about free speech. And actually, Mark, that was one of the arguments about the Online Safety Act, that through a VPN, you can get around the back of all of this and probably find even more dangerous content. And Daniel says, I agree with this being an offence, but it doesn't require banning anything. And Daniel, that's exactly how I feel on this too. But this is an authoritarian government. Their instinct with everything, whether it's in the manifesto or not, is to control, is to ban. And the announcement of compulsory digital ID was, I thought, one of Starmer's worst moments yet. Well, the Times have reported within the last hour and a half, and with a high degree of confidence, that actually there's now going to be a U-turn and we are not going to have compulsory digital ID. Let's remind ourselves of what we were told.
I'm announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them.
Oh, they told us it would stop illegal immigration. They told us it would stop illegal working. They told us it would make our health records even better and more efficient. And, of course, the counter-arguments were that it's Big Brother gone mad. The counter-arguments were that all of this data would just leak anyway, as nearly all of it does. And it was very interesting because the public, in a snap poll, by about 70% to 30%, when they heard the initial argument it would stop illegal working, were in favour of it. Once the country had debated it for a couple of weeks, it kind of went 70-30 the other way. Ranul, this government's astonishing. It announces initiative after initiative and gets forced to change its mind.
Yeah, this is its 13th U-turn.
Major U-turn.
On the 13th of the month. And, you know, it's an extraordinary state of affairs that this country is basically paralysed by a government that is in office but not in power. They can't do anything because their backbenchers won't allow it on welfare reform. They now did propose solutions like digital ID that weren't going to fix anything that couldn't already be sorted if the authorities did their job and employers enforced the law. And then, you know, what's next? Perhaps juries. You know, they trailed that they were going to water that down after creating a policy that no one wanted.
And none of this in the manifesto.
No, exactly. It's all out of nowhere.
Jagos, not in the manifesto. I could go on and on.
And these things aren't going to solve the problems that they say they are. You know, so take the jury trial. They say, oh, it's going to solve the fact that there's a backlog. Well, no, the problem is that the courts aren't sitting. That's the real problem. It's nothing to do with juries. You're still going to have trials. So, you know, the idea that digital ID was going to massively clamp down on illegal migration and illegal working, no, because they're already doing jobs.
But, I mean, a foreigner to work now has to give an employer a code. Yes. I mean, Joe, this is an authoritarian government.
Well, it's a government that just seems to be so bunkered that it's not actually listening, whether it's farmers or pubs or whatever it is, they're not listening. And anybody could tell you, as anybody has told us regularly, the impact of the inheritance tax on farms, the impact of the business rate increase on pubs.
So how can they be getting it so wrong?
Because they're not listening. And then what...
But who do they must listen to someone?
Well, yes.
I can answer that.
Well,
go on.
Well, so, you know, things like inheritance tax on farms. It's the sort of thing that the Treasury has in a file on a shelf waiting for a new minister, and they say, Chancellor, we know you want to have a really strong start in office. We've worked up some fantastic ideas. The trouble is, those ideas have been sat on the shelf for the last 10 years, rejected by every previous Chancellor.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right. I think they are bunkered in the Treasury. And I think the problem is that you've got Keir Starmer, who is far too busy doing foreign affairs. You've got Rachel Reeves, who I think, you know, just cannot see anything beyond a spreadsheet. And I wonder what the constituency MPs, you know, do they not talk to people? Do they not talk to the people and work out, actually, look at those nail bars, look at those barber shops, look at those car washes. And actually, you know, that's where, and to be fair, the government has increased hugely the number of arrests and raids. And that's making quite a difference. But, you know, we also need to know, don't use those places.
That segues in quite neatly, because the government now are launching a TikTok campaign. Yes, a big TikTok campaign to tell us how well they're doing with arresting people who are here illegally and working illegally. Let's have a look at the government's latest TikTok campaign.
You can move back. I'm arresting you for facilitating the legal entry of migrants to the UK.
Although it's not quite as dramatic as the way the Americans do it. Let's have a look at their social media on deporting illegals.
Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. And right now, you can save £50 per person.
Well, the Americans do turn politics now into reality TV the whole time. Joe, you made the point that we are arresting more people, we are getting more serious, although I guess the argument would be, with illegal migration running at record numbers, we need to.
Yes, of course we do. But we are getting, or the government is making some progress. And you can't, you know, we can't keep saying they're total rubbish. 50,000 people have been deported, 50...
Not illegals. Overstayers.
Well, they're still people who are not meant to be here. But this crackdown on illegal working really needs to have some teeth. Because it's, you know, you could go to any number of places around the country and you could pick up people who are not supposed to be.
No, absolutely.
And, you know, we have the powers. You know, to talk a little bit about the sort of authoritarianism, there is a desire, and I don't think it's particular to this government, I think all people in government tend to do it, but this worse than others, perhaps, is that let's come up with a new law instead of using the laws that we've got. And giving particularly to local authorities. I mean, local authorities have lots of powers on environmental health and other grounds and trading standards. They can use those powers, so you don't need lots of laws, lots of conversations.
Well, they are doing more, you're right. Although, to date, only 12% of those arrested have been deported. Ranald, the last government was very, very soft on this. At least she's doing something, Shabab.
Yeah, look, you know, credit where credit's due. You know, I think the trajectory has improved. That's important.
There's a long way to go.
There's a long way to go. That's exactly right. And, you know, I support the government actually communicating this as well, you know, because it's important that there is a counter to what the gangs put online to the migrants in Calais, saying, look, you can come over, you get your hotel paid for.
Yeah, more illegal content online.
That's right.
You know,
so this is showing what happens if you do come here. It's a disincentive. Now, we need more arrests to really ramp that up. We need more of this content on there to show if you come here illegally, you will be deported. But, you know, again, credit where credit's due. It's important to communicate
maybe get some people who could make a TikTok video.
Well, see, I'm not on TikTok, so I've not actually seen this video until now. So I'm pleased.
Neither am I.
I thank GBNews for putting that on there.
But I would have actually perhaps got a 16, 17-year-old to make it instead of a bunch of civil servants.
Well, you've got to give the Americans credit. They make it very, very entertaining.
Yeah, but they don't show pictures of people being shot in their cars, do they?
Well, she wasn't an illegal migrant.
No.
And Americans are being shot every day, all over the country for different reasons. Right, in a minute, let's talk the Chinese embassy. Why on earth were they ever allowed to buy the historic Royal Mint building? We'll begin the debate with that.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. If you're heading away for some winter sun, there's plenty of sunny weather across the Mediterranean, into Spain and Portugal, some wet weather through the rest of this week, but plenty of sunshine for parts of the Mediterranean, particularly into Greece. A risk of showers for Italy, parts of Croatia as well through this week, but it's Spain and Portugal that's seeing the particularly wet weather through the rest of this week. Slightly fresher feel for the Canary Islands on Wednesday, but it does look like temperatures come up more closer to those 19-20 degrees by the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast, coming to you from the Met Office. As today's rain clears away, we're going to have a chilly night because of largely clear skies. We're dragging in colder air from the northwest now, and that's why with those clear skies we're really going to see temperatures plummeting overnight. Most places will be dry, just a bit of cloud, a little bit of rain clinging on, lingering in parts of the far southeast, and a fair few showers, which could be a wintry mix, some sleet, some snow mixed in across parts of Scotland. As I mentioned, it's turning chilly though, temperatures widely dropping to around, if not a little bit below freezing, so plenty of frost around. There could be some pockets of mist and fog, freezing fog across some parts of the south, and do watch out for some icy stretches as well. With these showers coming in, falling on frozen surfaces, well, it is going to lead to some pretty slippery surfaces. As we go through tomorrow morning then, a bright start to the day for many, just the cloudy, showery picture across western Scotland and a bit of cloud building across western Northern Ireland. Otherwise, plenty of sunshine. Just worth noting, any fog or freezing fog that does develop across those southern areas could take a little while to clear. Then as we go through the day, the sunshine is going to get a bit weaker. The clouds going to build for many places, particularly across the far south, where we'll have cloud thickening and some outbreaks of rain pushing in, but also across western parts of Scotland and also Northern Ireland as a band pushes in as well. Temperatures will be markedly lower than today, most places only getting maxima in the mid-single figures Celsius. Then, as we go into Thursday, potential for some very wet and windy weather to sweep up from the south, particularly affecting England, but perhaps Wales as well. Some uncertainty about the position and intensity of this. Further north, staying with a mixture of bright sunny spells, but also some wintry showers. A mixed picture then as we go through the end of the week and into the weekend, staying a bit colder towards the north. Bye-bye.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Chinese mega embassy at the old Royal Mint building at Tower Hill is back in the news. Let's just remind ourselves of what kind of government we're dealing with. Here was our Prime Minister in 2024 at a bilateral meeting with the Chinese leader at the G20. Just look what happened when he raised a tricky subject.
We are concerned by reports of Jimmy Lai's deterioration health in prison. You raised the Chinese embassy building in London when we spoke on the telephone, and we have since taken action by calling in that application. Now we have to follow the legal process and timeline.
No filming allowed, and all the journalists bundled out of the room because a question was asked about Jimmy Lai, who, as you may know, was the press baron in Hong Kong, who's now going to spend probably the rest of his life in prison. Well, an amazing piece of work overnight by the Daily Telegraph newspaper. This was the plan of what the embassy would look like that we'd seen before. The redacted plan, but the Telegraph got hold of the real plans. And here they are. And here they are. Now, that gives you a lot more detail, including special rooms that are within feet of critical high-speed internet cables. In fact, some of the most important internet cables in the world in terms of financial transactions and much else. This has been the fear all along. I'm joined in the studio by a friend of the programme, Luke de Pulford, Executive Director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. Great work from the Telegraph.
Absolutely superb work. The greatest thing about it is that somehow, and we don't know how, they had obtained drawings which show that these cables which connect Canary Wharf to the City of London, the arteries that feed the backbone of the United Kingdom economy, were within 1.5 meters of the perimeter of the Chinese mega embassy building. Not only that, the plans detail that what would have been a bit of a buffer between the embassy building and the cables is due to be removed. They're going to remove this extra area in order to bring them within an even closer distance of these cables.
And this embassy, 22,000 square feet of offices, etc. Where are we? Is it guaranteed that it goes ahead, or is it still at planning stage?
I would put my money on it. It's 95% sure, unless there is some extraordinary intervention from the United States. And the reason for that, it's really twofold. First of all, an economic carrot is being dangled before Keir Starmer. You can come to China and do your visit with your business leaders to try to get some economic benefit.
It's due to go shortly, isn't it?
It's due to go shortly, but only if he greenlights the mega embassy.
Right.
That's the key point. The other side of this, which has been missed by many people, is that our embassy in Beijing, since at least 2018, has been seriously coerced by the Chinese. They are not allowing us to renovate it. This is a crumbling building. They are switching off the water and electricity to it periodically. We are being faced with a choice. If you want a functional diplomatic presence in China, you're going to have to allow this monstrous mega embassy.
It's just, I mean, it's unbelievable. And the way, of course, to deal with bullies is to stand up to them. Just an historical thought, Jay. The Royal Mint, this historic site that's been there for centuries. I mean, Sir Isaac Newton ran the Royal Mint for years. What are we doing?
But why was it allowed to be... I mean, maybe you can answer this, Luke, I don't know. But, you know, why was it allowed to be sold to a foreign entity in the first place? I mean, I know we have, over the years, unfortunately, sold off an awful lot of historical buildings and palaces and grounds and things like that. But this is a huge part. And because of its proximity to the Bank of England, and, you know, just... 1.5 meters is probably less distance that you are from Nigel between the cables. And we should point out, actually, to be fair, that Tower Hamlets councillors unanimously rejected this when it came to planning, and then it was called in to the government by the planning inspector.
There are so many things to say about this, but I think the most important is that when the government greenlights this embassy, which they will do, the only way of stopping it will be in the courts. The residents are now raising money for a judicial review, and the strongest argument they have is that the government had their minds made up all along. And there are many corroborating pieces of evidence. The most important is that after they were humiliatingly rejected by Tower Hamlets Council the first time they applied, the Chinese said, we will not apply again unless we get assurances from the UK government that it will be successful. If those assurances were given, and we think they were,
by
that
this
would be
government or the previous?
No, the previous government.
The previous government and this government. The Chinese did apply again 1 month after Labour got into power.
Yeah.
And that, I'm afraid, raises a lot of red flags.
Do you get the feeling, you know, when you look at the list of senior foreign civil servants, company bosses that finish up as non-executive directors of firms like Huawei, do you get the feeling that the British state's been corrupted by Chinese money?
No, I don't think it's as serious as that.
Don't you?
No, I don't think it's as serious as that. But I do think that people are not clear-sighted on the challenges that China poses to the United Kingdom. I think people are living in a world of 2015, the golden era, not realising the threats.
Didn't Cameron get that wrong?
Indeed. And that's part of why this site got sold, right? You know, so I accept that. I think some people are still living in that era, and it's time to wake up. On this particular application, I mean, I think the trouble is that even if it goes to judicial review, and even if the judge strikes the planning decision as void, it can still be reapplied for again, and the government could be more careful in the way they proceed. So ultimately, it will require, under this government, an intervention from the United States to say no, because nothing else will stop them.
I mean, Luke, final thought from you. I look at the horrendous errors of Cameron and Osborne in completely misjudging who President Xi would be and what the Chinese Communist Party was about to become. I look at this government and the way it's behaving. I'm going to ask you the question: have elements of British senior society been corrupted by Chinese money?
Yes, and if you don't believe me, listen to the most senior committee of Parliament, which said that China had penetrated every sector of the United Kingdom economy. Not my words, their words. This embassy will unleash hell on the United Kingdom in terms of Chinese interference and espionage and intimidation of many people who have sought refuge here. That's what we're allowing to happen if this is green-lighted.
And I would just remind people, as you know, Luke, in Manchester a few years ago, outside the consulate where people were protesting, a protester was bundled in to the Chinese embassy, and one of the things that we can now see on this unredacted drawing is a room that could potentially be used for holding people.
It doesn't say it explicitly, but yes.
It could be.
I don't disagree. Luke, thank you for coming in. And, I've felt for some years that the level of corruption caused right across the spectrum of those that run this country has been going on for a very, very long time. In a moment, we're going to talk about Iran. Now, we don't know the truth, but we think over 2,000 people have been killed, murdered by that vile regime. Maybe help's at hand. A post that Donald Trump has put out today says, keep protesting, take over your institutions, help is on its way. MIGA, make Iran great again. Is Trump about to move? I have to tell you from a personal perspective, I very much hope so.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Regular viewers and listeners to this show will know that ever since 2015, I've been wholly opposed to the deal that was done with Iran. And of course, it was Obama, the European Union, and of course, the British Foreign Office. And I feel that we've actually artificially kept this appalling, barbaric regime in power for longer than necessary. So every time there's an uprising, I hope and pray that something comes of it. This clearly has been the biggest one since 2009, but even bigger than the one that happened back then. It's also been very interesting to see that the name Reza Pahlavi has been mentioned a lot more than ever before. He is the son of the late Shah, and I'm pleased to say he's a friend of mine. You know, he sees himself as someone who could go in and help to establish modern Iran as a democratic state. Well, there have been protests too, of course, at the London embassy, including this, when a young guy took down the Iranian flag and put up one of the Shah's old flags. Have a look. Well, I was there yesterday with the protesters outside the embassy, and it was pretty emotional. People saying, my brother's missing, my sister's missing. We've no idea how many people have been massacred. We're told a minimum of 2,000. Who knows what the true numbers are? And it sort of appears from news reports that maybe the regime are beginning to succeed in putting down the revolution. I don't know. But today, Donald Trump has published this on his Truth Social platform. Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Capitals, help is on its way. MIGA, as I mentioned earlier, make Iran great again. President Donald J. Trump. I would suggest, it seems to me, that when an American president is as explicit as that, something's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is very encouraging as far as I'm concerned. The regime in Iran is a very bad regime. It's been there for far too long. In fact, very bad Foreign Office advice back in, I think, 1979 to Margaret Thatcher saying, don't allow the Shah to come to the UK at that time. Hence, he had to, I think, go to the United States. You know, I think this is an opportunity for all Western powers now to come together. The fact that the United States not only that tweet, but has also put tariffs of 25% on any country dealing with Iran, this is very, very positive. It's going to turn the screws.
Yes, I think I would just caution. You can't get rid of a regime unless you've got something to replace it with. Yeah. And I think that is the real problem and the real danger for the Iranian people.
I suspect that's why Reza's name is being used more and more. I'm guessing.
You know, and it's astonishing, isn't it? It's nearly 50 years ago that his father was deposed.
I know.
And we've turned full circle.
Well, let's go to Masih Alinejad, Iranian journalist and activist who joins me down the line. Is that right? Is Reza Pahlavi now seen as perhaps somebody who can provide an alternative?
You know, I heard one of your guests said that's real danger for Iran right now is who is going to replace Ali Khamenei and the Islamic Republic. Yeah. I don't buy that. Millions of Iranians don't buy that. The real danger is the barbaric regime who is now using military weapons against unarmed people. The real danger is the regime that now have been killing like more than 10,000 people. The number actually you mentioned, it's very more than 10,000. Now CBS reported 12,000 people have been killed. And my source has been telling me from inside country, those who have access to Starlink, that they have witnessed how every night thousands of people being shot to their chest, to their heart, in front of their eyes. So massacre is unfolding in Iran. This is the real threat to the people of Iran. Otherwise, you keep hearing that people in Iran, yes, they are naming the son of the Shah. This is a nightmare for Ali Khamenei and his regime. But at the same time, don't forget that we, the people of Iran, want fair and free election. And Reza Pahlavi is saying that he is all about election. So this is not the real danger. The real danger is the silence that we keep now warning the Europe. Where is the UK Prime Minister? This is the real danger. Where are the G7 leaders? This is the real danger when we see that President of United States of America saying that he is going to target the Iranian regime, then the Europe just issuing statements. It is shocking. It is unbelievable. I myself hearing from Iranians inside saying that they're really looking for outside help. What does it mean? This is the first time in the history that millions of people taking to the streets and saying that we need help. They are naming the streets after President Trump. Why? Because they're fed up with the Islamic Republic. Because they believe that Obama betrayed them by sending secret letter to Ali Khamenei while people were in the street naming him in 2009.
They're right. They're right. Massey, thank you for that brief. Well, she says 12,000. I don't know, Joe.
Yeah, well, who knows? We don't know. What we do know is that they're brutal, and it's time they went, and they've been there far too long. But I still think, you know, you've got to have a plan. You can't just bomb the regime out.
But she's also right about Obama's failed deal, and, you know, that has now been
we went along with.
Well, you know, many of us were saying it was a bad deal, but unfortunately this country went along with it. But, you know, I'm afraid that, you know, this is where hard power counts. And Yvette Cooper saying in the Commons that we demand that the Iranian authorities respect the fundamental rights and freedoms of their citizens. That just does not
mean
count.
anything.
Where hard power is important.
And where are the protesters? Where are the free Palestiners? Where are those defending freedom and rights? Or is it just because actually they only protest when it comes to Jewish people?
I think what's actually quite extraordinary is the minute that it became the possibility that the Shah might return, suddenly this is something that the left, who are largely behind those campaigns, cannot comprehend.
Well, the Shah
cannot comprehend this.
The Shah might return, but not in the way of the old Shah.
No, not in the way of the old Shah, but some sort of constitutional monarchy being an option.
Well, it worked.
They cannot
understand. Worked for Spain post-Franco. It did work for Spain.
And he has said that he would be willing to stand for election. Or you could do a caretaker, you can do a transitional.
But they just can't cope with this.
But you do need to have a plan. You can't just go and bomb it.
At the minute, he is the best part of the plan, I think. Now, later on tonight, don't miss the second part of Bev Turner's interview with the Undersecretary of State, Sarah Rogers, on The Late Show live from midnight tonight. You saw an earlier part of that earlier where, who knows, we could be in a big diplomatic fight with America over free speech. And I just want to say, whatever President Trump does, all through my business career and life around the world, I've met the most wonderful Persian people, incredible people, educated people, great people. They deserve so much better than they've got with this VAR regime. I'm very much on their side. Jacob, State of the Nation in a moment. What have you got coming up?
Yes, I mean, I'd just say I agree with everything you've just said, and let's hope that it goes well. What have I got? Well, another U-turn. I mean, I think Keir Starmer should do the knowledge, because he's getting as good as U-turn as cab drivers. And I can thank all the wonderful London cab drivers who look after me and say, well, on ID cards, compulsory digital ID is now not going to be compulsory. But that, in a funny way, is even worse, because it's now going to be a very expensive, badly run government IT system that won't even do anything. So the government's just so cavalier with our cash, with taxpayers' money. It comes up with these ideas. It hasn't thought them through. They're half-baked. After a few months, pressure and people realising what the consequence would be, they abandon it, but they've still spent hundreds of millions of pounds, and they will spend even more introducing a system that they're not actually going to use.
I love the government's U-turns. I support nearly all of them. I think they're absolutely terrific. I really, really do.
It's like Torval and Dean.
You've got to think something nice about them, I suppose. Anyway, I'm back with you tomorrow. Let's have a look at the weather, shall we?
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. As today's rain clears away, we're going to have a chilly night because of largely clear skies.